This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the universe is freaking amazing. I swear, this episode, I came in today rolling in so much pain, so emotional. I'm feeling so heavy and like I have to show up no matter what today because it was so important for me to be with this guest and for a bunch of reasons. But this universe is unbounded, right? It doesn't mean that it's not hard to traverse. It doesn't mean that it's not hard to climb. It doesn't mean that it's not hard to fall. But through those, it is so amazing to feel the sunshine and to be outside and to breathe and to love and to laugh and to experience and also to fail. And my God, is it amazing to fail? And I know that that might sound strange, but for me, I mean, each of us, when we think of the word failure, it means something different to each of us. But from my perspective, failure has helped me to learn from my mistakes. It has made me rethink and reconsider and find new ways and strategies to achieve my goals, to love as hard as I love. And because, I mean, without the failures, how can we appreciate the wins, right? How can we appreciate that sunshine if all we are is in the dark, you know? And we all know what that sunshine feels like, even if it's just a little bit when you walk into it, even that for a moment, and you feel that warmth when you're in your jacket and you're in your mittens or wherever you are. Everybody's felt that chill and then feeling that sunshine in the midst of that feeling. And that feeling is why I am here. And that feeling is why I am here today. And for the warmth, right? For the warmth, even through the challenges and through the sadness, and for the sunshine through the darkness. And I've seen a lot of darkness in life. I've felt a lot of darkness, and I've been so deep in it that I don't even know if I ever saw sunshine for a bit of time. And I know that it was fed by a massive amount of fear. But there's so much light in my life now. And this guest of mine today knows fear like nobody's business. And man, oh man, has she conquered and is such an incredible inspiration to me. And, you know, on the show, I always say, I'm rolling out the red carpet for you when I introduce somebody. And for this one, I am really rolling out the red carpet. She has a sparkle in my life and one that I never want to lose. And she is that sunshine. She is that light for me. You know, if you looked at our relationship on paper, it would look kind of transactional because we met over a transaction, and we'll talk about that. But it's why I love that she's here, because we have this connection, we have this energy, we have this love, and we share this incredible word, grit. And without further ado, I bring you the most amazing woman on the planet, Mary Crafts.
Whoa, 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 whoa. That's way too much to start off with.
A little bit of pressure.
If you just start off with, I brought somebody that you may or may not enjoy, then I could
no
blow
way.
their minds. But now you're like,
well, the pressure is on, women. No, I mean, you're wild, you're crazy. But most importantly, you are a badass and you don't have any give up in you. And I love that about you. And it's something that I'm reminded about, that I share that with you, even in times of my darkness and times of my sadness. And thank you for that. You know, thank you for being that model for me and for all of the other people that you've touched with your light and your sparkle and all of that.
You know, I love that what you said. And even after all the things I have gone through, and you would think, okay, now she's on this platform and she gets to stay there in this great place.
Yay.
Well, a few months ago, I turned 69. And I had all these great plans for what I was going to do on my 69th birthday. And they all involved this crazy physical stuff. You know, we were going to go hiking in the morning, and then we were going to golf in the afternoon and go on a pickleball court at night, and then out to dinner. And when my birthday rolled around, I was in such pain that I had not felt for decades. And I sat on my sofa in my house and just thought, is this what the rest of my life looks like? Is this it? Did I get to be that badass for 18 years? And then the 19th year is when I lose it all. And had a lot of self-doubt that I went through. And then it was to remember again, wait a minute, there is no give up in me. And whatever is happening today is not going to determine the rest of my 40 years on this planet.
40 years. I love you. I love you so much.
And
for you, probably 80.
And so I actually went to the doctor, and I had an MRI done on my knee and on my back again. And I went into his office, the orthopedic guy. Okay, now orthopedic guys only want to do one thing: operate. They want surgery.
No,
That's
of course
it. They
they
want anything else.
do.
And that's my knee. And he said, well, you've got some, thinning of the cartilage here, and you have a little bit of a torn meniscus over here that probably happened on Kilimanjaro. And there's not a lot we can do for you right now. In essence, take 2 aspirin and come back in 5 years and we'll replace your knee. And I thought he had thrown this ball back in my lap for me to hold, and I was devastated. And I walked out of the office with my hands literally in front of me like I was holding a basketball.
Oh my gosh.
And when I got outside, I just stood there in the hallway for a minute, and I kind of felt like Kevin on Home Alone. I'm home alone. I'm home alone. I'm home alone. And so it's like, I have the ball. I have the ball. I have the ball. He gave me back the ball, and I'm going to run with it. And I began that healing process again. All
right?
over again. But from a different point. Now I know more. And within a week, the pain in my back and the pain in my knee were gone. And I postponed my birthday then to be able to hike and to be able to pickleball and golf and go out to dinner and wear my heels in no pain. But there's no give up. There's sometimes just a regroup.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. We need a regroup here, guys. One of the things with doing this show and being on yours as well, I'm taking on so much heaviness and listening to all these people's incredibly vulnerable, traumatic, sad, devastating stories that have regrouped, that have pulled themselves out of places I never would want to go. And somebody yesterday said, Lyndsay, you need to figure out a way to clear, right? And after each one of these episodes, I'm getting rid of some of my junk here, but I'm just kind of replacing it with other people's stuff. And I'm like, oh no, I've got to get a handle on this right now, because the personality that I am really wants to just like glom on and love and learn more and get more entangled in their stories and all. And that's me. And I have to like really regroup with myself right now.
Clearing.
Yeah, clearing. Clear this out of here, man. So you mentioned Kilimanjaro, and I really want you to talk about this because she's written this book called Unbounded: From Sorrow to Summit. And oh my gosh, woman, this thing is like in pieces. It's taped together. I was like, I don't even know where to begin to talk about it because it's so incredible. And it made me love you even more, which I didn't think was humanly possible to do, but it did. And it's going to be your story of resilience is just going to be with me forever. So I want you to talk about what you did, honey.
Well, okay. Have to give you the short version, obviously, because we're on podcast.
I know.
But, yeah. But read the book. You get the whole version in the book.
That's exactly right.
The short version is that I, like so many people, grew up feeling that I was not enough. Not enough for my mom, not enough for my family, not enough for my first husband, or actually in reality, let me rephrase that I was so much that my first husband could not accept that and my greatness. And so his goal in life was to push me down, and lived with that for 28 years through physical, emotional, and verbal abuse. I say this in the book that emotional and verbal abuse is more difficult than physical abuse, because the physical abuse, I don't know, I had some sort of ability to say, this has nothing to do with me. This is your problem. And there was something about that. But when it's verbal abuse, it stays with you long after the bruises are healed. And you play those tapes over and over in your brain. You're worthless. No one would take you. Go ahead and try. You would be alone the rest of your life. You're never going to be this person you put out that you think you are. You're nothing. You're an F&B. Those tapes, I can still play them now if I allow myself to, but I don't. I choose something different. I choose tapes like, I'm the most wonderful, loving human being that I know. And there isn't anything that is impossible. Nothing is impossible. And it's never too late to claim those things. Look at all you've done, you badass woman. Those are the tapes I play now. And that didn't happen for me until age 50. And at that point, I got back the photos. This is back when you went to Kmart to get your photos.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You did.
And then it turned into like 1 hour photos. We were like, oh my gosh, this is such a win for society and technology. And I know everybody looked through them and you're like, yeah, I know it was a rough weekend.
Okay, so much for that. Thank you. And moving on. But I got the physical photos. I sat in my car and just wept for about an hour. I couldn't believe the photos of that woman in front of me in those photos. I never dreamed that I would be 284 pounds at age 50. I thought I would have long since handled so many things in my life that now were like chains that had bound me up. And at the base of all of those chains were my own fears. Yes, I was in a marriage that made it worse, but I came into that marriage with fear of not being enough and needing to prove myself, and that thought the way to proof was in doing, not in being. And I began that day knowing that change was coming for me. And I began to see in everything that I was doing how fear was making every single decision in my life. I was a great caterer. Why? Because I was so afraid of failing.
Oh man, your food was amazing.
Right? It had to be, because I wasn't ready to accept the ridicule or rejection that would come if it wasn't amazing. I was at everyone's beck and call, and did that for so many years, and did it out of fear as opposed to doing it out of love. By the time I met you, Lyndsay, and I catered your wedding, I had made the shift. I had made the shift into wanting to be my best, to serve you and love you, not because I was afraid I might fail. And as I got track of those fears and began to see and be able to track, okay, sweaty palms, what's that fear coming from? Headache, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to stop at the store and have a couple candy bars before I go home. What is that about? I'm not hungry.
Oh no, woman.
I was afraid of going home. And by putting on all these layers of protection, they weren't working. I was still hurt. I was still afraid. One of my favorite lines in the book, Lyndsay, is when I say, the healing starts when the hiding stops. And I began to take that first step into the passageway between fear and love. And there's a lot of steps in that passageway from a fear-based life to a love-based life. But the first step is the most important. And that is being able to risk being vulnerable, to showing your fear, to admitting the things that scare you, to showing pieces of you that you think are broken. And what I discovered was the most profound thing I've ever learned in my life. Like you said, you already loved me, but now you love me more. I know why. The reason is, Lyndsay, is because you saw me before as this badass, perfect person who was running this catering business, and she was a great businesswoman and she was so fun and blah, blah, blah. But you love me now because you've seen my nakedness.
Absolutely.
You've seen how I feel, all the things, the fears that was inside of me. And what I discovered was, you mean there are people who love me because of my fears, who accept me regardless of what I'm afraid of what's happened in my past or what I'm afraid of right now? You mean that's possible to find acceptance and love in a naked state? And at 284 pounds, to be able to think of myself as being naked in front of people was quite a frightening thing. Now, I didn't all of a sudden just go out to some strip club and start like bringing it on, but that's a principle for you. But it was that
Oh
I
my
was willing
God.
to show people all that stuff inside of me. Like when I was willing and able to say, I have yet to attend one of these networking events because I drive around the block and then I go home because I'm afraid I'm going to go in there and I'm not either going to be dressed right or I'm not going to say the right things or no one's going to talk to me and it looks like nobody likes me and it looks like I don't have any friends and blah. Rather than go through that and face that possible having friends, I just as soon go home.
Mm, yeah.
And to make that decision the first day to park my car and go in no matter what. And what was I going to do different today? I was going to walk up to someone and talk. I was going to ask them, hey, this is my first time today. Where'd you get that name tag? They over there at the registration. Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much. And then after that, like, is there a program or do we just like, chat and talk to other people? And they go, yeah, pretty much. There's not really a program. You just chat and talk to other people. There's the food and bars over there. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, thanks so much. And then I went and got my name tag. When I walked back into the room, she was there. She goes, hey, I see you got your name tag. Let's go get something to eat. I was like, this is easy.
You're like, what the hell was wrong with me for all this time? I completely identify with that because I have like some pretty decent anxiety. But as I'm listening to you and as I read your book and as I've been doing this show, I'm learning that so much of my anxiety is completely fear-based. A good example that I have is parking anxiety. So like if I don't know where to park wherever I'm going. I will go wherever it is I'm going to be. I will call a restaurant. I will look at like the schematics of a mall. Some of that is because I'm pushing myself through in a wheelchair for some of my life now too, but it was before all of that. And it was that fear of the unknown. And I did the
Yeah.
same thing with networking groups for my company. I would just not show up. I would go, I would circle around the neighborhood. I'm like, I can't find it. Oh, I'd make up some kind of an excuse. Oh, I think I got the wrong address. I'll see you next week. Like what? It's just unbelievable for the same exact reasons that you're saying. So I'm like, I don't feel as alone in that,
Yeah.
like I'm not batshit crazy. Well, maybe I'm a little batshit crazy, but I'm not making this up. Like this is a true feeling of fear, of anxiety, of not being loved, of not being liked, of being pushed out, of not finding where the hell the name tags are,
Yeah. And so I put that Post-it note that I talk about in the book, I put that on my bathroom mirror and I kept it there for 10 years. Now, there were times the cleaning lady messed it up and I had to put a new one up, those kind of things. But every morning I asked myself that question. I looked at it and I would ask myself, what would I do today if I wasn't afraid? And I asked that every day for 10 years. I would think through my day. I would think through a part that I knew I got so I could just feel it instantly. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And then I would begin the visualization process of what would I do today? Just let's pretend. I mean, you don't have to do it, but let's just pretend that you're not afraid. What would you do today if you weren't afraid? Well, I'd actually pick up that call, make a connection to this person who I know uses so much catering and has been using someone else, but I know I have what they are looking for. And I would find out who their executive assistant is and I will connect. You know how many new clients I got from thinking that in the morning? I would spend my day, just a day, working on that and connecting and looking on the internet, and bang, I would think, okay, now I had the information. I don't really have to call. And I think, yes, you do.
So I go everywhere towards the door and then I just don't open it.
Yeah, but it's good because that's what I would have done if I wasn't afraid. But if I really, and sometimes I wouldn't call. But the next morning, guess what? That damn post-it note was still waiting for me and would say, what would you do today if you weren't afraid? And I would like, okay, I would finish that. I would follow through. I'm going to call them today. I would visualize that. I would visualize it going perfectly and maybe not perfectly. Maybe I got rejected, but when they hung up the phone, I'd be able to say, damn girl, you did that. Woo.
That's right. I brought it.
And then by age 56, I had the courage to divorce my husband after 28 years. And I'm now 69. And so I began that process at age 55. So I've been nearly 14, 15 years in a different world. And it's possible. If I want anyone to take anything from this book, it is this, that it's never, ever too late. Stand toe to toe with me and tell me that it's too late for you. It's not. And that nothing is impossible. Lyndsay, when I tell you that I know you're going to be out of that wheelchair and that healing is going to be yours, I say that in full confidence. I know that is a gift that you are going to accept from the universe.
Absolutely. And my sticky note is actually, it's like a paperweight. Like who uses paperweights to like put paper underneath them? I don't know. Is everybody's office super windy? But I have mine that's on my keyboard every day. And it says, and it's this big, heavy piece of metal and it's engraved and it says, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?
Yeah.
And it is mine every day. It's the same thing, just a couple different words. And, you know, it's funny, it sits here every morning and I look at it and some days it really affects me. And I'm like, you are a badass today. And then there are others that are like, I kind of like forget to read 9 of the 10 words, you know? And it's a reminder though. And I also I use expo markers, like dry erase markers. I have them in my bathroom and I have them in places where I have mirrors. And I write like affirmations in expo marker because it wipes right off your mirror. And it's a good reminder, like, oh shoot, I need Q-tips or whatever, you know? So it like works for all kinds of different things. But I love it because I'll get an idea. I'll get something that makes me want to, I want to craft that into part of my meaningful life. And it's such a small thing that we can do. You know, who knew that Post-it was going to save our lives? These little tiny sticky squares save the lives of millions.
So many people think that, oh, I tried that, but then I failed. And so,
and your next statement is what?
because it's not one upward climb. You know, it's not just a straight path. It's up and then down a little bit, and then up a little bit more, and then down just a little bit, and then up a little bit more, and then down a lot. And then it is a zigzag line. But the speed of the climb is not the important piece. It's the direction of the climb. And you and I both know there's no such thing as flatline. You're either working up or you're working down. And the speed of that is not the important piece. It's the direction. That's one of the big lessons I learned on the summit. And as I practiced and I worked for a year in training for this summit, that I was going to put my stake in the ground as I have done this. I have claimed the freedom that is mine. I am unbounded from all of these fears. I needed something to put my stake in the ground. And when someone said to me, you shall climb Kilimanjaro, I was like, all right. They go,
sure, okay. Are you crazy?
I was 60 at the time. And he said, well, how much time do you need to get ready? And I said, oh, like 5 years. And he said, really? You'll be 65. Is that right? And I said, yeah, I need that. Thinking that he was going to forget about my goal and that perhaps I could too. And then he reached out and you should share that goal with as many people as you can. Don't hide it. Keep it out there. Keep it real. Have people asking you all the time, how's that coming? Like, okay. So I put it out on social media. I put it out to my friends, to my family. And I'm not kidding you. He was absolutely right. Everyone said, so when are you going to Kilimanjaro? Well, when I'm 65, I'm going to be ready and trained. And when I turned 65, I realized, dang, I better get after this. And
Shoot, I'm
so
going to be held accountable here.
yeah, I'm going to start training. And in January of that year, I actually put all the money down. I bought my airplane tickets. I paid for my expedition fees. I started getting my gear because I didn't want any excuses for turning back. Every day I would ask myself, what would you do today if you were no longer afraid of climbing Kilimanjaro? I would do this and I would do this and I would do this. And what I learned in that training process was that in order to get to the summit of any mountain I chose to climb or any hill or whatever it was, you saw the top of it, you got that, you envisioned it, but sometimes it's not in sight. You're traversing the mountains so that you can't really see the summit. Like on Kilimanjaro, I only saw it the first day and the last day.
Hmm.
So I would learn to set myself goals that were about 100 yards ahead. And when I got there, I could rest for just a second, take a drink of water, and go on. That's how it was in my weight loss. I would set a goal of 20 pounds. No one ever sets a goal. You're going to lose 150 pounds without weight loss surgery. Who sets that kind of goal? No one.
Right,
And
right.
see, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I would see that 100-yard mark and I would get there and like, dang, girl, you did that. That was a pretty tough stretch. You did that. You go, you go. And then the next 20 or the next 100 yards. And then another big piece of that I learned was you also have to watch very carefully where you put your footsteps every single day and every moment of the climb. Because if you're not watching, you could twist your ankle, you could fall. You could use that as an excuse. Oh, I have to go down. I think I've hurt myself. So you but you have to watch every step. Are they pointed in the right direction? In my weight loss goal, you know, was this day pointed in the right direction? No, actually, this day was about a hot fudge sundae. And so then you say, okay, that's all right. Are you going to get back on the path tomorrow? Absolutely, I am. I would get up, I would look at my post-it note. What are you going to do today? Because you're no longer afraid. I'm going to train. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do my stair steppers for a full 2 hours. Just
Oh
climbing.
my gosh, that sounds like torture.
Well, until I got to the first day when we all met together, the people who were in my group, and I found out that they had all climbed Denali, which is one of the most difficult climbs, and Rainier, which are two of the most difficult climbs. More difficult. They're not as far, but they're more difficult than Kilimanjaro. Some of them had done Everest. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong group.
Crap, I am
And I'm there
totally.
alone. And this woman was talked about, doing her 2 hours on the stair stepper. And I said, oh, I did that. And then she said, how many pounds of rocks did you carry in the backpack? And my face just collapsed. And I said, we were supposed to be putting rocks in a backpack while we did this? And she goes,
I'm
yeah, I
dead.
usually put about 30 pounds in there. Because so you
Oh
can
my
simulate
gosh.
what your backpack is like on the journey. And I'm like, oh shit, oh dear, is there a helicopter out of here?
Seriously.
I, but once again, I got up the next morning and I said, what would you do today, Mary? If you weren't afraid of everything you went through your mind last night in the tent, alone in your tent, I'd pack up my gear and I'd climb this mountain. And that's what I did for 7 days. And you got to read about that.
I did get to read about it. And I love how you talked about the steps part because there's a bunch of places in the book that stood out to me. But that place is in the book where you talk about, I forget the gentleman's name. He was the big guy that was with you.
Big
What was
John.
his name? Big John.
Big John.
I got half of it right. Big John. But about how like he was almost like pissed off at you. Like you are going to follow every damn foot because that is a 1,000-foot drop right now and you're in the dark. And that really stood out to me because I lose my footing so much. And I have so much darkness when it comes to living in this bod sometimes. And that really like it just rung so true for me about Lyndsay, whether your feet are on the ground right now or you're rolling, you have to be very careful because you can hit that cobblestone in Italy in your chair and face plant like nobody's business if you're not paying attention and you're not cognizant of your journey and the path in front of you and not so worried about getting to the Colosseum and getting in there in Rome. But the process to get there was very challenging in a wheelchair for me. And it was, but man, I keep saying, I'm like, if I can do Rome and the Colosseum in a wheelchair, I can do freaking anything.
Absolutely.
It was like my Kilimanjaro, that trip. It was 2.5 weeks of me never having been in a wheelchair before, me never having been over to Italy, my sweetie and I finally getting to go explore Europe together after years of a really strange relationship that we have. And it's like, it's wonderful and beautiful and absolutely spectacular, but it's been a journey to get to where we are today. And that trip was so momentous for both of us. And it really, really just that part of the book. Like I said, multiple, just throw the whole damn things in pieces, but that part right then, it hit me so raw and so true. And that will be with me forever. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
So her book is called Unbounded, From Sorrow to Summit. She also has an amazing podcast that you must start digesting, and it's called Crafting a Meaningful Life. And both are absolutely wonderful. And within her book, she has little QR codes that lead, which is very smart, by the way, that you can look at, you can scan and look, and it will bring you to a specific podcast episode of hers that kind of talks about that part of the book. So it's really, really neat. It's almost like you got to do both of them, guys. And there is one quote that I love, and I think it's more towards the middle of the book. And it says, "The resilient embrace pain and transform it into power." And whatever that word pain means to you, it can mean all kinds of different things, right?
Yeah.
I love that line because that's what I'm doing on the daily, right? I am taking this sitch and I am transforming it into power. I am transforming it into blessings. I am transforming it into that sunshine and that light, out of the darkness, out of the fear, out of the anxiety, out of the sadness. And I just love that. So thank you for the gifts that you've given me and that you will continue to give me and others as well.
When I said that in the book, I didn't say the flip side. So I'm going to say it to you now.
Okay.
The resilient turn pain into power. If you're not resilient, you turn pain into punishment.
Mm. Okay. Well, I think that we can leave with that.
And you get the great news is though you get to choose. The whole chapter on pack your bags, girl. We're leaving Victimville. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Victimville.
So you get to choose. You get to choose. And you can choose it every single day. This pain is becoming my power, my empowerment. I'm not going to let this pain punish you. You get to choose. And you have to choose it again and again and again. But eventually, it becomes your power.
I love that so much.
My fears that I felt have definitely become my empowerment.
For sure. For sure. You truly are a badass woman with purpose, grace, and grit. It couldn't be a better line for you, woman.
Yeah. And my book's available on Amazon. You can buy it there, very easy, $17.95. Or you can listen to my podcast for free. So both are available.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll, of course, be putting your book on social and in show notes and all that stuff, as well as your podcast, because, you guys have to follow this woman in her journey in her life. You've just gotten to scratch the surface here today, but please do, because she's worth it. She's worth it. That's for sure.
I love you, Lyndsay.
I love you too. Thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. So what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? And I think that's mine, and hers is, basically the same. But man, it's definitely I have these in multiple places throughout my home and my office, this exact statement. And I kind of walk by them and don't look at them as much as I should. And this has just really brought back to life that frame of mind and that statement. And I thank you for that, and for our listeners as well. So Let's go kick some ass. That's what I want to do with you.
Absolutely.
You are exclusively invited to share this unbounded VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Please follow the Pain Game podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be there. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.